Hello, Eric Rainwater here. Got a little break in the weather. It was raining earlier. But I want to talk to you about kind of my philosophy of not sweating the small stuff. But it comes from a phrase that my grandpa said all the time, and my dad said it quite often. So I heard it all the time. And something would happen. Somebody would do something that you didn't like or whatever, and they would say, in the scope of eternity, does it really matter? And the reality is, no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It brought perspective, and they said it all the time. Now, I eventually asked the question, well, in the scope of eternity, what matters? And that question has driven my life. And a lot of these things I record, I hope that they are things that matter. When we look at life, when we look at eternity, what matters? And then there's things that don't matter, things that are interesting, those types of things. But most things don't matter. It's okay that you've been defrauded and wronged and these things, especially if you're a Christian, right? The saying is, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And because that's that strong word, vengeance, sometimes we can think about that and we only apply it to big things. Right? You think about vengeance, the word vengeance. You only would want vengeance for something that was hard. You got hurt really bad, or somebody you knew someone close to you was killed, things like that. So on one scale, most people, the average person, does not want revenge for, being made fun of, or, kind of getting hoodwinked. You want to say being lied to, those little things. But even those little things, we can want vengeance in our heart, even if we know that society wouldn't allow us to act on it. We've learned that we can't be like a toddler. We can't react right away and act out and do what we want, right? Sometimes what we want to do is punch the person, or hurt them, or do the same thing back to them. And in a measure, that's right. That's mature. I am concerned with some of this generation that they still act like toddlers. They have temper tantrums. They might hurt somebody, including themselves, because they're sensitive about every little thing. I'm triggered. Well, don't get so triggered, and that's what I want to talk about. Don't get so triggered. All right, learn to have thick skin, have tough skin. But that's not automatic. That's not natural. The natural thing is to punch back. And in some respect, if we had a culture that, if you knew you were going to get slapped back if you said something, you wouldn't say it. A lot of these young people that they have temper tantrums is because they didn't get any discipline when they were little. And one side of the culture is so civil that they won't say a thing. one side of the culture doesn't have a backbone anymore. We've become so civil. And so that's the other side of the coin. We do need to have a backbone. We do need to stand up against things that are wrong. And there are things that are wrong. And there's a time to not take it. But in the day to day, lots of things can happen. And that's why it's not just the philosophy of don't sweat the small stuff. It's not the philosophy of, don't say anything about being non-confrontational, because I don't think that's good, because there's things, like I said, there's things to confront. But that's why I like the question that my grandpa and my dad would say in front of me. In the scope of eternity, does it really matter? Because it's a question, it makes you think and discern the answer. And so stopping helps, and then thinking, right, instead of reacting, engaging your rational mind, but discerning. Does it really matter? And maybe it does. Maybe it needs to be addressed. Maybe it's a slight now, but knowing, if it's a relationship, like, hey, if I say something now, it can have a better out. We can get rid of it now. We can get rid of the trouble now, and it can end up in a good place. But some things you just let it roll off your back. It doesn't matter. And that's good. That's healthy. To not sweat the small stuff, to not make mountains out of molehills, how to be easygoing and be mature and be an adult, and not learning to not lose your head. When the chips are down, right? When things aren't going your way, do you lose your head? What's that Kipling quote? If you can keep your head when all about you lose theirs. That you do that by practicing discernment day to day, right? That's in Hebrews 5. You gotta learn discernment day to day, day by day, moment by moment. And no one does this perfectly. I mean, we're all going to be tested all the time, and sometimes it is, you lose your head over a small thing, and you realize afterwards, oh man, I lost it there. That's part of the growing up process, and I still do it. I'm a pretty calm guy, but there's things that yes, trigger me. But recognizing that I'm the one triggered, and therefore I'm the problem. Maybe there's an issue. Maybe there's room for conversation later. But if it's a random stranger, what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna punch them out. I'm not gonna demand respect from someone I don't know. Yes, it'd be better if we had a society where we respected one another. But if you learn from those mistakes, that's the big thing that I think is missing, is it's okay, like, in one respect, that you get triggered. Things are going to trigger you. Things are going to light your fuse, right? That's the way we used to say it. If someone was triggered easily, they had a short fuse, is what we would say. And this generation, they have a short fuse. They don't have thick skin. They're thin-skinned. They have a short fuse. They're easily triggered. And that is not maturity. That is childish, and that is immature, and it's toddler-like. And that's not what it means to be an adult, man or woman. Learning to be calm. And then learning to take responsibility for yourself. Be strong within yourself. Learn the mistakes within yourself. So when you recognize, hey, this thing, I don't like how I reacted to this thing. Do I make it the other person's problem? Or do I make it my own problem and I deal with my own? And I go, oh, I want thicker skin. I stop and I think and I self-evaluate. And if it keeps going, I take it to God, right? I deal with the issue. It's funny, so I run into a lot of people and they ask the question, how you doing, and those things, and I'm usually feeling pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I'm great. And they're like, man, you're always feeling good. And it's like, some people have been like, they're like, are you being honest? And it's like, yes, I am being honest. The reason I'm being honest is because I have learned to deal with my own junk. I take time to get by myself and examine my heart, not in a constant, putting myself down, constantly thinking I'm the worst person ever. No one's the worst person ever. But everybody has the potential to be. And so owning my own mistakes, my own emotional triggers in my own heart, right? I was a very calm, very peaceful person, and then I got married and I got this person next to me all the time, and I was shocked how triggered I got, how short of a fuse I had. And through the years, I have learned to not take it personal. And that can be hard because you love the other person and you want to be understood. You want to be loved. But even if they're the person committed to know you and to love you and they love you like no one else, they're still another person. They're still not inside your own head. They still misinterpret what you say. And that's why marriage, and then especially children, that is the testing ground of these things. And that is part of why God instituted marriage and children and families, is so we learn to grow up. Because it goes deep down inside, because you can't hide from these persons. If you're single and alone, it's easier to be alone and deal with your stuff, or to only deal with people when you're ready to. But when you're not, it can be hard. You can be to your limit, right? I did this with my own daughter yesterday. I was just like, please get away from me for a second. And I saw the sadness in her eyes, and I wasn't even freaking out. I just kind of said it, and I was like, ugh. I had to kind of shift direction and be like, no, I gotta allow her into my world. It doesn't matter how tired I am and how I'm touched out, right? That's okay. Learning from those things, owning those mistakes, owning those things in your heart, and asking yourself the question, how can I deal with this? How can I overcome these things? How can I have tougher skin? Right? That's learning to be patient with yourself, and to humble yourself. That's it. It's day by day, it's moment by moment, and it's stopping and asking the question in the scope of everything, right, which I think is eternity, where God dwells, in the scope of all that there is, even in just the scope of my own life. Is this thing going to hinder me going forward? No, not the thing that someone did. It's not really going to change me. They can't take anything from me. A couple weeks ago, I had a Todd White quote about identity, and I think I said it kind of wrong, but it's, why let someone take from you what they could never give you? One other person cannot give you identity. My own wife, my own children cannot give me my personal identity. Only God can. Together we find out our identity. It's more clear, but I have to figure that out on my own. And so what they might do doesn't really hinder me most of the time. Now, if it's a pattern and you have a relationship, it might be something to bring up. You can deal with it. But the thing that does hinder you is you having a short fuse. You reacting to the thing so quickly and not and losing your head. That's the thing that is hindering. That is the thing in the scope of eternity that does matter. Because how are you going to deal with the big things in life, right? How are you going to keep your head when all about you are losing theirs? Which that kind of situation means a chaotic situation, right? Not everyone goes to war, but looking at our culture, I think people are losing their heads all the time on both sides. And to keep your head, right? In this generation where everybody is being reactive to each other, can we learn to keep our heads about us? Can we learn to be calm and not be reactive all the stinking time? And be secure. Now, for me, I think that only way that fully happens is knowing who God is to me and who I am to God. Right? I know who God is, and I know that I am loved and cherished despite my faults. And when I stop and I reestablish that, then I stay calm. Right? When I stay in that place, when I get back to that place, and that's what I do. That's what I try to practice. Not that I perfectly do it, I still freak out. But I stop. I ask myself the question, in the scope of eternity, does it really matter? No, it usually doesn't. I'm okay. I'll be alright. And I check back in with the Lord, and I try to do that day by day. And so when someone asks me how I'm doing, I'm great. I have nothing to complain about. All my needs are taken care of by the Lord. I am at peace because my eternal salvation is secure, and I'm thankful. I'm in a place of gratitude and thankfulness for the things I have. I'm not dwelling on the things I don't have, and I stop and I go. I can make a plan to figure out life and the things I want to do, and the things I don't have control over. I don't have control over it. It's not on me. I'm not having to figure out everything about my own life. I'll be all right. I'm fine. I'm secure. And so, yeah, learn to not sweat the small stuff and ask yourself questions like, in the scope of eternity, does this really matter? Learn to have an attitude of gratitude, right? It's these trite sayings, but they're true. They're simple. They're easy to kind of remember in the mind, but the practice of them is what's difficult, and that takes time. That's day by day, but that's part of being a grown-up. And if you do that, then when truly tough things happen, you'll be okay. You'll keep your head, right? You will, because you've trained yourself to stay calm, cool, and collected in the midst of trials. And trials will come. And looking at the way the earth is going, greater trials are ahead. No matter what happens, right? Things are going to happen. That we're not on a trajectory where things aren't going to happen. We are on a trajectory where no matter who's in the White House, it's not an easy road out. The way is through. But you yourself can be secure, especially eternally secure. And if you're eternally secure and you're and you're in gratitude and thankfulness, then here's the thing: you can live in joy and freedom, and you can see the colors around you and appreciate the good things in life and the beauty in life. You know, you can stop and smell the roses, those things, but it comes through practice. It takes time, and that's okay. You know, determined to walk it out. Things won't magically happen. Set your goals for your own heart, get that in place, and then figure out what you want to do to be, to succeed in your goals in life, and you just keep on trucking. You'll be all right. But if you don't learn to have thick skin, if you don't learn to practice discernment day by day, you will not grow into maturity. So maybe this is especially for young men, young women, and even if they're old. If you've never learned this, you can start anytime. Learn to stop, self-evaluate, forgive yourself, and keep going forward. And ask yourself, like I said again, those questions. In the scope of eternity, does it really matter? So I hope this blesses you and helps someone out. I'm smoking, if anybody's interested, I'm smoking just a local kind of Virginia blend. I kind of go back to a lot of the just the mild, sweet Virginias. This is the original tobacco leaf, and it is good. All right. Bless y'all. Like this, share it, whatever you want to do. Have a good day.